Joining us today on Pirate Radio Live, Coach Mack McCarthy. Coach Mack, how are we doing today?
I am good. I hope you are, Clip.
Doing well. We're kind of giggling as we come on because I just made a fool of myself off the air, and I'll let you know what I did in a moment. But Mac, where to begin today? Let's talk a little basketball. I like these kind of signs of the times when it comes to portal and NIL, and I believe I heard a player from the championship Florida Gators is leaving to go to Kentucky for a pay raise, right?
Aberdeen, yeah. Again, the answer's money. What's the question? But Aberdeen is going from Florida to Kentucky. Kentucky's had a really good year. If you can believe all that Jeff Goodman says, no one will outspend Kentucky this season in the portal, which is a pretty big statement because there's some money being thrown around out there.
Yeah, I think about this a lot too. Like, I don't want to call it a built-in excuse, but John Gilbert, last time he was on Pirate Radio Live, he said we can buy a good basketball team. And he's right, and it doesn't take the coach out of the equation, but like, how much can a good coach do if the school he's coaching at doesn't have money to bring in players? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's more important right now, a great head coach or a great bank account if you're a college? It's got to be the bank account, right?
Well, we've talked about this, ad nauseum for years and years, for 2 decades on Pirate Radio about the resources and the support that's needed to win in basketball. But now it literally is just about the money that you have to spend in the NIL platform. But you can buy a basketball team, and I think it's easier in some ways to buy a basketball team than buy a football team because one person or two people can make a huge difference, where two people on a football team, even if you get a quarterback and whatever the next most valuable position is, edge rusher or whatever it is, even if you get those two positions the best in the country, you still may not win because you've got 22 players on the floor instead of just 10 on the court.
And trying to understand NASCAR better, I've asked you and others over the years, Mac, if I gave you the best driver in the, I guess, quote-unquote, worst car with the least amount of money in the garage versus the worst driver with the best equipment, who does better in the race? The guy the guy with the better equipment?
Always, yeah, and that's the most extreme example of it, but yes.
Yeah, and they say money can't buy happiness, but in my adult life, I've been, more broke than I have rich, and I think it would, it can bring some happiness to people.
That's the answer is they're shopping in the wrong place if it's not bringing them happiness.
Oh man, tough times in college, and not a lot of activity for East Carolina in the portal. Hopefully they can add some. Pirates got good news in basketball, Mac, just by the retentions, and credit to the NIL here at East Carolina, able to hold on to Jordan Riley, Jay Shane Woodard. A couple of guys that were pieces last year. Jordan Riley, certainly a big piece. Jay Shane, a freshman who I love. I think can be really good. So you mix a couple of returners with, like you said, you don't need much. A couple of guys in the portal that can help you, and you can put together a winning team.
Yeah, as we know, the retention is just as important as going out there and getting somebody new. And that's one person that you don't have to bring in. They already do know your system. And while that's not as valuable as it was at one point in time, it's still a value that you can get some continuity and have some people there to help the newcomers acclimate and get ready to go. Retention is extremely important.
Mac, one more thing on Pirate basketball. R.J. Felton, all-time Warrior, one of my all-time favorites here at East Carolina, was in the Portsmouth Invitational, and he was a late ad. According to a tweet, it said he drove up 2 hours the day of the game, stepped out of the parking lot, and was the MVP of the game. Had 20-plus points, put on a good show. and great for RJ. And from what I understand, that it once was, I don't know about still is, but once was a big time tournament with a lot of eyeballs, right?
Yeah, it's still a big deal. There are more people opting out, just like they do with individual workouts in football and that kind of thing. But yeah, the PIT is still a good proving ground, and every single team in the league is still going to be there watching that tournament.
Mac, what are the go to events? Is there any for? Well, now with the portal, there's not. You go on the computer and click who you want out of the portal. But what are the big go to events for coaches that are recruiting kids out of high school? Are there growing up those big like Phil Knight camp or whatever? Like what are the big camps and stuff that coaches would go to today? Are there any of those still out there?
Oh yeah, they absolutely are, and some of them are AAU driven. The national championships in Orlando, the big time tournament in Las Vegas is still a big deal. The Augusta tournament is still a big deal. I think it's called the Peach Tree, maybe Peach, well something Peach, but. Yeah, there are still a handful of big events that are out there, and in addition to the season. But yeah, summertime basketball is still the proving ground because you get the best against the best. Where high school season, you may not get that at all. You may see a player dominate every single night, depending on what kind of league he's in.
How much, Mac, from your time early on to coaching into the 2000s, did it kind of shift away from high school to the AAU and to these events? Like, how much high school watching did you do late in your career?
Yeah, not a ton. Depending on the situation and how well known the young man or young lady was. But that we have absolutely signed players, even when I was doing it, and that's 20 years now, almost 15 years anyway. We have absolutely signed players and never met the high school coach, which
Wow.
would have been unheard of when I started.
Yeah, no doubt. Mack McCarthy joining us, got to evolve in all walks of life, including being a basketball coach and certainly a football coach as well. Mac, I said it a lot last year. I don't know about reinvigorated, but you upped my interest in college football last year with our off-season discussions, and namely keeping up with where the quarterbacks are. And we got some quarterback roulette going on this week. I think trades should be allowed in college sports now. If we want to trade, say we're stacked at tight end and need a defensive end, we can make a trade with the school. And let's be honest, folks. Some of these kids don't care what their major is. So guy could switch his major if he needs to. But we had a trade of sorts. So the App State quarterback Aguilar, who I was not super impressed watching live against ECU, goes to UCLA. Of course, you got the Nico situation at Tennessee. They don't give him the raise, so Nico ends up at UCLA. Aguilar says, all right, well, I'm out of here. He goes to Tennessee. Basically a swap there, Mac.
Yeah, the trade, it almost seems like a trade, and who knows, that may be coming. But yeah, you get Nico going west and back in Southern California, and Aguilar, who ironically is from Northern California, but was at App and then UCLA. He comes to Tennessee. He's going to have to compete for the job, but clearly Nico was going to be the front runner, and who knows who the front runner is at Tennessee? I guess McIntyre or the other guy that's coming back. And then on top of that, just like all true trades in the major leagues or the NFL or the NBA, a player to be named later, Nico's little brother Madden is also going to transfer to UCLA. Now I guess the theory will be that he has to be out of college, out of high school 3 years to go to the NFL. So he redshirted, he played, and now if he plays and has a good year, maybe he's in the draft, and then little brother takes over. But yeah, this was a family deal, and making it even crazier, Madden committed to UCLA, backed out of it, went to Arkansas for spring practice, and now recommits to UCLA. And you absolutely need a scorecard to tell the players.
We need our conspiracy board. Those things, Mac. Remind me, was it did Larry Brown hire a relative of Danny Manning, or am I making that up?
His father.
Okay,
His father.
yeah.
Yeah.
We've seen situations where was it recently? Was it Missouri? Hired someone so they could get a big time player a few years ago. But we've seen this time. That's not even a deal anymore, really. That
Yeah, Porter, one of the Porter players in the NBA. Yeah. But that's happened forever. It's been family members. The more common thing was coaches, and there have been a lot of examples of that through the years.
And look, LaDontae Felton might be a great player, but I think a lot of the reason he came to ECU last year was to keep R.J. Felton here at East Carolina. It would not shock me at all if that was 100% the case. My bonehead, why did I say that from earlier off the air? We're talking about Aguilar. And I said, where's he from? He said, California. And I said, oh, he must like the mountains. He was in App State. And I said, there's mountains in Knoxville, right? And what was the 2 words you said to me, Coach Mack?
Rocky Top.
Oh, yeah, Rocky Top. There's a reason they say that, huh? So that was my bonehead geography mistake from earlier today. I didn't put a lot of thought into that.
Yeah, even the mascot is named Smokey after the Smoky Mountains. So come on.
Yeah, that was tough. And the stadium's right by the water too, right? Have you been to that Neyland Stadium?
Multiple times, sitting right on the Tennessee River.
What's your favorite SEC venue?
Oh gosh, they're all really good. I don't know. Obviously, I went to the Auburn games more than anywhere else because working there. But I tell you what, now Tennessee, sitting there on the water with the volunteer Navy coming up and all the folks docking their boats together. That's a pretty cool scene.
I like the end zones. I'd like to go to some of those stadiums one day and check those out. That'd be fun. Had a trivia question about Auburn a little after your time there, Mac, but NFL draft coming up this week. Do you remember the 2 Auburn running backs that were taken in the top 5 of the 05 NFL draft?
Cadillac and, gosh bless. I can see the other one, but I can't think of his name.
He didn't have a cool name like Cadillac. Ronnie Brown was the other one.
Ronnie Brown, yeah. Ordinary name. Well, I'll tell you what. Now they've probably gotten undersold as a running back kind of place. Everybody remembers Bo Jackson, but there were some others there. They had when I first got there was James Andrews, who ended up being an All-Pro in the NFL. Joe Cribbs, All-Pro NFL, and you had Brooks. Gosh, I can't remember Brooks's name, but they were All-Pro, and then you came right behind them with Lionel Little Train James, Brent Fullwood, and Bo Jackson. They had some serious running backs in my time there.
A little later on, when I first started watching the Skins a few years later, drafted and didn't expect much from him, but Stephen Davis turned into a really good running back. In the NFL.
From Greenville, South Carolina.
Big fan of the big 48 Stephen Davis. Mack McCarthy joining us. Mac, as I said, NFL draft coming up this week. Have you ever been to an NBA draft?
I have not. And we had quite a few lottery. We had 3 lottery picks at Auburn. We had Chuck, Person, Charles Barkley, Chris Morris. And I'm not so sure that we had another guy the year after I left named Mike Jones, who may have been a lottery pick from Milwaukee. He might have just fallen outside. And of course, I had a lottery pick at Chattanooga, and a kid named Johnny Taylor who went to Orlando. I was with Johnny and the family, at his house when he got drafted in the lottery, but he was not invited to the main event. So right. No, I've never been to any of the drafts, pro football or basketball.
I know who has. John Calipari has been at drafts.
Yeah,
he's been in more drafts than anybody, I think.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing what he has done. I mean, and all of them are lottery picks, it seems.
Yeah. He finds himself on the television. Who's I don't know, Mac. Who are it might be tough to say when it all comes down to money, but who, for your dollar, are the best X and O's guys coaching college basketball right now? Who's on the short list for you?
Oh gosh, X and O wise, it's so tough. I mean, even the guys that have great players can be really good X and O guys. I apologize for the cat screaming in the background, but live radio, right?
Maybe they're saying a team with a cat. Are they trying to tell us something? Is it Kentucky, Arizona? I'm trying to think. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Kentucky, Arizona, whoever the cats are out there, Auburn Tigers. We get all
Pearl.
those guys.
Maybe they're going Bruce Pearl.
Or maybe Bruce is probably an underappreciated X and O guy. Despite his antics on the sideline, wearing a little thin in my world, but he's pretty darn good. And people say he's a better coach. He's a better coach. Coaching takes up so much space. Are you talking about recruiting? Are you talking about motivation? Are you talking about, portaling? Are you talking about the actual strategy, the X's and the O's? It all has to work for you. So just because you're not great at one thing doesn't mean you can't be great at the overall process.
Speaking of motivation and discipline, I was gonna got to this with Mully, but I'll bring it up with you as well. Braves, Jared Kalenic pimps a single that he thought was a home run.
I saw that.
Ronald Acuna, I wish he would have stayed off Twitter, but he didn't. Said he would have been benched for that. He's been benched for it in the past. Not to get into all that stuff, but. For Mully, I asked it from a professional standpoint. As a college coach, you have to still discipline the guys. But do you think in the pros, Mac, that's something you wish you didn't have to deal with, like telling a guy to run to first. But how do you handle a star? Is that one of the reasons you maybe didn't get into the pros, because they have all the power, and because you got to worry about your GM and your owner if you're benching a high priced guy because he did something boneheaded on the field.
Yeah, it does make it tough. And where does the coach stand? Where does the manager in baseball obviously stand in terms of equity and how much power he has to challenge the GM or the owner or whoever the powers may be? But some managers could absolutely have a little discipline in that situation, and some better walk carefully and better check before they make any public statements.
Yeah, there's a difference between like a Joe Torre and first year Marlins manager Clayton McCullough, former Pirate, East Carolina Pirate, and hoping he does great things in the managerial world. Mac, how many minutes of NBA playoff basketball have you watched?
Zero.
Zero. Man, zero.
Yeah.
I'm a little higher than zero. 3 games coming up tonight. Hurricanes playing tonight. How many minutes of Stanley Cup playoffs have you watched?
Less than basketball.
Well, I'll give you credit, Mac. That's what you told me you would watch last week. So you were a man of your word. You have.
I was fairly certain that was going to come through.
And you didn't watch NASCAR this weekend because I take that back. I did. Xfinity ran, and did the trucks run as well?
The trucks ran as well on Friday, and the Xfinity race was unbelievable. 13 cautions. The thing could not end. They wouldn't let it end. And then after it ended, it still didn't end because they had to penalize and take the win away from Jesse Love and Richard Childress Racing for an illegal rear end. That brings up all kinds of things, but we probably won't go there.
Illegal rear end. I think J-Lo was cited for that.
I knew if I gave you an opening, you would jump through there.
If there's a dumb joke out there, I'm going to take it. Were they at Darlington, Mac?
They were at Rockingham.
See, now I'm sorry. Again, bonehead number 2.
For the first time in a long time, had a great crowd, but it only holds 30,000. But the racing was very good. They've done a repave. It was a success. I don't know if they can get a cup race, but hey, they're giving one to Iowa right now. It doesn't seat much more than the 30,000 that the Rock does, and who knows, with Bowman Gray in circulation, North Wilkesboro in circulation, maybe it gets an all-star event. But I was glad to see him back at the Rock. That was fun, and I know a lot of Greenville folks used to go to Rockingham regularly.
I wanted to bring that up because I think Dale Earnhardt Jr. has done a pretty good job of the track restoration in certain places, right? So, is
Yeah.
there like another ghost track you would like to see return to the big league, so to speak, where they haven't ran in a while?
That it's so hard to do the math. I mean, 30,000 versus even 50 or 60, or
Yeah.
I mean, you had tracks all the way up to 150 at Bristol and that kind of thing during the peak. And of course, NASCAR killed the golden goose by trying to do too much and having too many gimmicks. But that's a whole nother show. But the one I would love to see a race at, because I've seen races there, but they haven't. The Cup Series hadn't been there in a long, long time, just because it's so small. Is South Boston, where Ward and Jeff Burton were from, and
Huh.
they are famous for the very best bologna sandwiches in NASCAR.
Okay. I don't. When did they stop running there? I don't even remember seeing a
It was
race there.
probably around 2000 when they finally stopped trucks and Xfinity, but
Okay.
Cup was probably in the 90s.
South Boston Speedway. Yeah, that does look old school right there.
It is. It is. I saw Dale Jr. get his first Xfinity win at South Boston.
Very cool. Mac, I'll ask you for a pick. Is it near impossible to? Can you make an educated guess at Talladega?
No, I mean, the Penske cars are really good at that. Whether it's Cindric or Blaney or Logano, and Keselowski's always a factor. But since I've got him in at least one fantasy league, I'm going to say Blaney breaks out of his winless streak here.
How do they do qualifying? Do they just do a time lap, or how do they do that?
They do, yeah,
Yeah,
they do it.
10-4. All right, Mac McCarthy joining us today. Coach Mac, what's on your non-sports watch list right now?
We're getting close to baby watch, with coming up in June. So we're doing all the preparation for that. So that's occupying
All right.
most of my time and all of Gene's time.
Fantastic. That's good stuff. Well, keep us up to date on that. And, Mac, we'll talk to you again next week. Appreciate you joining us today. Great to talk with you, man.
Thanks, Clip.